This extends. Pause. You want this work? You want to warm up your voice in my backyard? You can catch his hand.
Okay.
I am back with another video. If you don't know me, I am Dex. For the second part 2 of this series, I'm reacting to true scary animations. If y'all haven't seen the first one, go check it out. Y'all showed serious love on that one. Go drop a like. Today, I'm going to try to, the day you're seeing this, I'm going to try to get another video up also. So maybe double upload the same day. 10 likes. And I got y'all with another upload the same day this is out. So hit that like button, share this video. I got y'all. Let's jump into some animations. Y'all recommend me anything, like any type of animations, any scary stories, anything y'all want me to do, just comment down below. That's why the comment section is down there. Let me stop rambling. Let's get into this animation.
My name is Jude, and I'm 27 years old. I've always loved going camping ever since I was a young boy. Some of my earliest memories were of me sitting around the fire with mom, dad, and grandfathers, singing songs and telling stories.
I apologize.
Stories, we always ended the night on a scary story, right before going to bed. And my grandfather's stories were always the best. His descriptions gave me chills as he described vivid characters and monsters from his imagination. I always loved to hear his stories. But once, when I was 10 years old, something happened that scares me to this day. One cool autumn day, my parents decided to take me camping with my grandfather, as we always did around that time of year. We arrived at the campsite around 6 o'clock, and on the way in, I saw that the campsite we were driving into was different than the one we usually camped at. The entrance to the campground seemed old, and a lichen-covered stone sign with the name of the grounds greeted us as we drove in. We arrived and set up our tents. After eating dinner and cleaning up, we sat around the campfire as usual to tell our stories. I can't remember all of the stories told, except for the last, my grandfather's story. I remember the smell of the burning wood and burnt orange sunlight casting long shadows off into the trees behind us as he began to tell his tale. He started by saying that it was a true story from his childhood.
Grandpa, why you gotta be the creepy one? Like, I'm just like, bro. And then y'all, it's only both of y'all, so is he like the type to have a shotgun? Like, I'm so serious. I'm not finna go out there with no protection.
And he had waited to tell it to me until I was old enough. This grabbed my attention, as usually my grandfather told fake stories, and never about himself. He said that he had been camping at the same campsite we were staying at when his story occurred. He started by saying the campground had been built back in the 1930s by CCC workers during the Great Depression, which, looking back, explained the oldness of the park. But at the time, as a kid, I really didn't care. He said that one night, around 1960-something, while camping with his father, he was fishing at the lake down at the end of the long hiking trail that led back to the campground. His dad told him it was time.
Please explain that. That looked like a whole spider. What is that?
Back to the campground. His dad told him it was time to leave, and they started off down the trail. As he was walking, he began to feel a strange sensation, as if he was being followed. He turned back, but supposedly saw nothing several times. He kept walking until he said he was stopped by a long, eerie moan rippling out from behind the trees.
Pause.
He described it as sounding like a ghost or a person being slowly injured. He and his dad stopped in their tracks. His dad apparently tried to tell him it was a coyote, but my grandfather knew better. He told me it wasn't a coyote. He believed it was something else, something more sinister. Nevertheless, after this encounter, he returned back to the campsite with his dad and never saw or heard anything else. He claimed that this was true, and obviously he wouldn't be telling this to us if he hadn't been affected by it. But to me, it seems silly. Scared by a noise? Come on. Anyway, about 2 days later,
Nah, don't even try it. Talking about some scared from a noise? If I hear a big bang, that gets me startled. Just with, like, you hear, like, something drop in like, the kitchen or something, you're startled. And if you're not, then I don't know, like, what's wrong with you? Really?
I was walking back to the site with my grandfather from a long day of hiking and picking wild berries in the nearby forest. Both of us were carrying heavy baskets full of berries to bring home. The sun was setting, and I noticed the long shadows peering out from behind the trees. As it began to grow darker, dead darker, the trail seemed to grow longer and longer.
Oh my gosh.
I began to feel a weird sensation in my stomach, like I was being watched. After about 5 minutes, the feeling began to grow, and I looked at my grandfather.
Dang, they both
He
scared.
looked right back at me with the same fearful eyes. I was in shock. Did he?
Nah, cause look, he trying to set him up. Like, no, you want to bring him to the campsite that you knew you heard something when you was a kid. You just said the story, but y'all wanna be out there at dark nighttime. At nighttime. This dude right here just, it's like they set it up or something. Like, why you went to a different one that you knew you was there when some bull happened? I'm like, y'all know y'all can agree with me. Like, let me just...
Same feeling? Then I remembered his story about the way he felt the night he heard the noise. I began to walk faster, and so did my grandfather, without saying a word. After about 20 minutes, it was completely dark, and our arms ached for carrying the berries up the trail.
I don't know about y'all, but I would have been like taking off with or without the berries. Like, to be honest, I'm not like, if you could relate to his story and you've seen what was in the trees, then you know I'm taking off. You know I'm taking off. No, I'm not finished this. Our arms was aching. If I feel like I'm followed, then I'm gonna start running. Like, no. No sir. No sir.
Right as I turned a corner, I heard a long, eerie moan. My heart stopped as I froze in fear. My grandfather looked at me and said, "It's time to go."
Long chin.
With that, we began wailing swiftly down the trail as fast as we could without dropping our berries.
You worry about some berries.
Just as I began to relax, I heard it again. Only this time, it was much louder.
Whoa.
It sounded like someone being murdered. It was terrifying. It came from directly behind us, and I felt a burning sensation in the back of my head. I dared not look back. I sat in fear, wondering of what could have made the noise, when suddenly I heard my grandfather scream, "Run!" I whipped my head around, and in the dark, foggy light, I squinted and I saw a tall, slender black shadow dart between the trees about 100 feet behind us on the trail. I instantly dropped my bucket and ran like the wind down the trail as fast as I could.
Do you just take off on Granddad? Let me stop pausing. I'm sorry. I know y'all trying to immerse too. I need to be more considerate.
Father was behind me.
Dang.
I became worried about him as he was an old man, and I was afraid he might hurt himself running down the rocky trail.
Nah, his adrenaline.
But I didn't stop, nor did he until we reached the campsite. That night, I sat in my tent, heart racing, thinking about What could have made that noise? After we came back home, we never returned to the old campsite. And to this day, that experience still haunts me.
Oh, Wansee. Y'all, I love coming to y'all channel. Y'all never disappoint me. The people that give y'all the stories and then y'all just bring it to life. That's how they do it. Y'all OG. Next animation. Sound from My Backyard by MJV Animations. I've been recording for 17 minutes. If y'all are still here, y'all are OGs. I appreciate y'all. Drop a like if you're enjoying it.
There was a time my parents went on a trip to Europe.
This dude's voice been so deep. He came and he said, one time my parents was on a trip from Europe.
I was taking care of their house. I was home for the summer from school anyway, so it was fine. I had been there for a few weeks and it was pretty quiet.
Pause. My guy, look at your toes. Look at your toes. Then you're the one who, your voice is not that deep. Stop it. Let me stop. I know, bro. He's the narrator. He's not gonna look like everybody that he's talking about, but I know, bro. Back up. I'm trying to entertain y'all. Back up, bro.
I just went to work, came home, had some time with my friend, enjoying the house to ourselves and whatnot. But one night, I was just laying there watching TV when I heard this really weird, low whistling sound coming from the window that was behind the couch. It struck me as sort of odd, and I just shrugged it off. But then it happened again.
No. If you know that it's like on tune, like in a tune, like you know they've been in like a type of chorus class, they getting their voice ready to sing. I don't know, like that would trigger something in me, really. Like I got goosebumps right now hearing that, because if that was me and I heard something like out that window, no. First, I'm getting something. I'm getting like this extends. Paul. You want this word? You want to warm up your voice in my backyard? You could catch his hand.
Okay.
Totally sounded like it was a person standing up against the window whistling.
Exactly.
I looked out the window and obviously there was no one there. So I figured I should go check it out. If it was something like the wind on the siding, I should probably fix it because that would get annoying. So I walked out into the backyard. The backyard in my parents' house is...
Hold up. You're like up on the window like this. I should check it out. Like, hold up. Then you want to go check it out. I feel like you don't have any shoes on. It looks like you're the type to not wear shoes. And then you don't bring no weapon. You barefoot. Ain't got no protection. I'm like, you're not that big, bro. You sound like you're big. Pause. No, every time I say something that's a pause, I'm saying pause. No, I can't. It's just, if I don't say it, y'all gonna be like, what did he just say?
Sparse, but sort of forest that leads to a road on the other side. So I looked at the house and didn't see anything. But then I heard the sound again. It was coming from the woods in the back.
Somebody walking.
I was pretty creeped out at this point, and of course I couldn't see anything in the woods. So I hurried back through the door and I locked it behind me. I never really heard that sound again for the next few days. Until one night, I was asleep in my room, and I could have sworn I was awakened by the whistling sound against my second floor window. I listened hard, and it was dead silent. So I decided I should go ahead and look out the window.
I see you with your fish.
I did that whole thing where I crept super slowly towards it and just sort of peeked through it. Outside my window, there was a man just standing there. I was really sleepy.
And dude, he don't look like the type to with that type of tune. And then like, dude, I really want to roast you, but man.
I can't know how much of this I'm misremembering, but he was just sitting there staring at me. I was completely frozen, and slowly, the man pursed his lips, and I could hear that whistle again. It was crystal clear. It made me feel like crying. I tore myself away from the window and I hid under my covers. The next night I insisted.
No, I'm sorry. I really apologize that I'm pausing, but it's hard not to say something. This dude goes under the blanket. On how the dude looks in the backyard, he looks like the type that will break in the house. So if you're just chilling under the blanket and he like silently came in the house, you're done. Cause he have the advantage of like you not hearing him because you're under the blanket and you're chilling. And you think that you're just protected by yourself.
My friend stay with me. He did. And of course nothing happened. He figured that I was just tired and delirious, and maybe I was right. It gets kind of anticlimactic here, but I didn't hear it for another week or so. And when I did, it was just one small whistle just happening randomly, coming from a wall or something like that. It just happens every week or so, and it always freaks me out tremendously. To this day, I would never stay in that house alone anymore.
If that's not the thumbnail, then I don't know what is. I'm like, bro, this is how you know you're not paying attention. This dude's all up in your house. I'm like, last animation. Let's get it. Next animation is True McDonald's Horror Story Animated. You know, these days McDonald's is like really hated because of their service and the food. Like they just downgraded. Like, you know, back in the day when they had commercials, you rarely see commercials. Like I rarely see commercials of McDonald's anywhere. I know it's not me, not only me. I'm like,
I've been working at McDonald's now for over 5 years, and this is still my creepiest experience there.
5 years.
This happened 2 years ago when I was 18, and I had been working my first overnight shift on front counter. I usually work in the kitchen on overnights, so I had no interactions with any of the customers until then. I was working from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., which is a usual overnight shift for us. Around 3 a.m. I was making some fries when I...
Bro, it's just kind of funny to me because every time she says a sentence, you hear that breath.
Okay.
Noticed a man standing there and trying to take pictures with his cell phone of me and my other female coworker, Rebecca. I pointed it out to her and she just rolled her eyes in annoyance and went to take an order in drive-thru, telling me it happened a lot. I was instantly uncomfortable. I wanted to tell the manager, but he was in the office doing his manager stuff and I didn't want to bother him. I went over with what I felt was a nervous smile and quickly did my usual greeting. "Hello, what can I get for you?" He just kind of looked at me and stayed quiet. He was about 5'8", white, early 20s, medium build with dark hair and brown eyes. An average man, I would say, but something about his piercing glare made me feel super uncomfortable. Then he smiled, a smile that sent shivers down my spine. "I'll just have a coffee. Black, sweetie," he said, and I could instantly smell alcohol on his breath. I nodded and told him the price before he pulled out a $5 bill and went to hand it to me, making sure our hands touched. I avoided his gaze.
Before I say anything else, awesome animations. Audio, gotta work on a little bit. Because that little breath between like every sentence, that. Then he makes sure that y'all hands touch, like, here you go. Just one bill, here you go. Like, you gonna have to get this K.O.
And went to hand back his change when he winked at me and went to go wait for his coffee. I went to go make it as fast as I could, but, just my luck, we were out of coffee on both the front counter and the drive-thru, as we don't sell much through the night. I turned around and kept as little eye contact as I possibly could. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to brew you a fresh pot. Should only take about 3 minutes. Don't worry, I don't mind. I have quite the view while I wait, he replied, shooting me a wink. I just smiled awkwardly and looked away. I had to make sure I didn't fall behind on my shift, so I began to set up the muffins on the display so we had them all ready for breakfast, which starts at 4 a.m. in Canada. So, Susan, I heard behind me, realizing it was the guy. I instantly tensed, wondering how he knew my name before I noticed I had my name tag on and quietly cursed to myself. I turned around and looked at him, and he said, "What time are you stuck here until tonight, beautiful?" I instantly panicked as I didn't do well in these situations. 7, I said nervously, which then the
These animations low-key have me like, they like low-key get on my nerves. Like the people that are in them, like if this is true, like, you know, you don't want to be rude to them, but because you don't want to get fired at the same time. But when you think about it, it's like this dude being way too creepy. I'm like, I can't tell you that, sir, like in the most polite way. I'm not telling you when I work till. I'm like, you gonna get your coffee and move. You're not staying here. Bye, sir.
The guy gave me a huge grin. "Oh, so you still have time before you're off, eh?" I nodded and noticed the
This dude hairline went from this to this. Why is it changing? Then to this. How it goes straight back to bodied. I'm like, bro, go to the barbershop, permanently hair. I don't know where I was going with that.
I nodded and noticed the coffee was done pouring, so I went over and made his coffee as he watched me with an intense stare. I handed it to him before saying, "Have a nice night," earning me another wink. He then waved and said as he turned around, "I'll see you later, Susan." I watched as he walked out the door and tried to calm myself down. He doesn't actually know when I'm off, so I'm okay, I thought to myself. 6 a.m. rolled around, and it was finally time to go. I still felt a little paranoid about the guy, but I knew it was now in the past. My coworker Chris was going to drop me off at home as we carpooled, so we got our stuff together and left. As we were heading to his car, I noticed a parked car with someone in it, and of course, it was the guy. I panicked and quickly Chris, that was the guy, as I had told him what happened not long ago. He instantly brought me into his coat and did his best to keep me hidden as we walked quickly to his car.
Yeah, what's up?
He made sure no one followed the car, dropped me off, and watched as I went inside, telling me to stay safe. I thanked him before going into my house and going to bed. The next day, I went into work and got asked by my manager how I got home. I told them Chris gave me a ride. My manager looked confused and said something that made my blood run cold. Oh, that's strange, because some guy was here looking for you just before 7. He said he was here to pick you up. I thought before that the man's intentions weren't good. Just the way he looked at me and spoke to me, like I was prey. And this pretty much confirmed it. Since then, I have refused to work front counter overnight shift, and we no longer wear our name tags overnight.
Ooh. That animation, golly. So she left at like 6, like right before he came in, 6:30. That's tough. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed these animations. I guess this video is kind of lengthy, but if you're here, I really appreciate you. I love watching these animations, to be honest. It's like everyone is different, so you really can't get the same thing out of like all these channels that do animations. That's why I kind of like mix it up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, like this video. It'll really help out the channel if you like the video. Nothing else to say, but I'll see y'all next video. Peace.